Hello and welcome to another small screen Star Wars. As always, I am Julian Mush. I'm joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about today, The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episode 12, Juggernaut. And do you think the name for this episode is more like it's just the vehicle?
I guess it's just the vehicle because to me, I don't know. It didn't. Not that it wasn't fitting. I just found like it didn't really suit the episode other than the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, there is some cool stuff with Juggernauts for sure.
Yeah,
Or it should have been called Turbo Tank. Don't you think?
Turbo
that would have been
Tank.
way cooler.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I was just kind of on the nose for the episode, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I think so. The guys over at friend of the show, Ryan Airy, over at the Screen Crush recaps, they said that it was like the Empire is such a juggernaut at this stage, and like their control. I just feel like it's a stretch. I think it's on the.
Yeah.
I think this episode title's on the nose.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna talk about all of this whole 23-minute episode pretty soon.
Yeah.
But before we do that, there is some Star Wars news to talk about again, which is convenient considering again this episode's quite short.
Yeah.
Not that we've ever had a problem doing long podcast episodes.
Yeah.
And well, some the usual reminders. So let's start there. If you're new to the show, here's the plan. We do deep dives and recaps into each episode of Star Wars on the small screen, hence the name. This is a sister show to the Tower of Babel podcast. You can find everything we do at towerofbabel.ca. That's BABBLE. Like talking, since we're a podcast. You guys get it. It makes it makes sense. We were so smart when we came up with that name.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Tower Babelcast on either of those. And if you want to help support the show financially, which if we're ranking the types of support, that's certainly the best one. You can go to patreon.com/Tower Babelcast. And if you're a fan of movies, just movies,
Mm-hmm.
and to be honest, who doesn't like movies? We do a monthly film club there that is exclusive to the Patreon. Last month we did Roadhouse. This coming month, I'm blanking on it. It's a Western. We're doing a Western.
Oh.
A Western that is a remake of an older Western. So I'm going to, hold on, it's got a stellar cast, but just trust me on this one for a second. Sam Raimi's The Quick and the Dead from 1995.
Oh, okay.
We're going back to the 90s for this one.
The Quick and the Dead, I have never seen or heard of it.
It's really cool. It's got Sharon Stone and Gene Hackman, Leonardo DiCaprio, Russell Crowe, Keith David, Lance Henriksen. Yeah, it's great, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know how I've never heard of this movie.
Do you watch a lot of Westerns?
No.
Well, that's probably why.
But I mean, it's a DiCaprio. Like, if Leo's in it, I feel like I would have, I don't know, come across my radar at some point, but I guess not.
It just felt like it was a natural progression from Roadhouse to a Western.
Yeah,
it felt like a natural progression. So stay tuned for that. That'll be on the Patreon for the end of this month. Of course, we have tons of back catalog you can go check out there as well, including our recap review of Dune Part 1 that we did. Great movie, turns out, those Dunes. Lisa Naki. All right, let's and of course, obviously, Dune, super influential for Star Wars, so it all comes full circle. All right, let's talk about some Star Wars news here. Star Wars video games have been in turmoil for the last, you could argue, for 20 years. But if you want to shrink that down, even like 10 years feels too long. The last couple years, where as Disney and Lucasfilm's strategy has shifted, the cost of licensing the product. This is what people are saying. This is the blame that these software developers, these video game developers, are saying it's too expensive to buy the license or rent the license from Lucasfilm, that it makes the cost of making the game, which is already expensive, not worth it.
Makes sense.
Which is why games that are like 95% done, that's maybe a bit much. Games that are very far along get canceled because they're just not financially viable. Hold on, let me get my fingers up on the screen here. Financially viable.
Okay. So wait, are you saying that developers are making these games before they get the licensing, and then they're like, the licensing is too expensive?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's more like the cost of making the game has gone up and up and up over development has continued, and that the continued burden, because I guess really what it is, it's not that it makes it more expensive, it just means that they get less revenue.
Right.
So if Lucasfilm is getting I don't know what the deal is, but let's say it's 10% of profit from the game sales.
Right.
That means that the developer is only, and the distributor is taking another 25%, and then whatever.
Yeah,
all these
everybody
other,
gets cut.
so everyone's getting a piece, and then at the end of the day, it's like, well, we're not going to make enough money back to selling this game to pay for it, so we're just going to cancel it.
Gotcha.
But on the other hand, you have, and that's EA mostly who's to blame for that, who had the Star Wars license for an exclusive license for 10 years, which had just expired.
Right.
So that means that we can turn to other studios who could make Star Wars video games, including one of the largest in the world, Ubisoft, or Ubisoft, I think as they prefer to be called. But I don't like calling them that. So anyway, they have made a game called Star Wars Outlaws. It was announced a few months ago, originally, last year sometime. And it is already set to come out this year, August 30th.
Okay. Yeah.
Big fan of announcing games when they are just around the corner.
Yeah. Not be like, see you in 3 years.
Well, it's actually longer than that. There's lots of games that you know about in development for like sometimes at least a decade.
That's wild.
It is wild.
Yeah.
So this is a game from Ubisoft, of course, the makers of Far Cry and Assassin's Creed, etc. Applying their craft to the Star Wars universe in a game set in between episodes 4 and 5.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely
5 and 6.
5 and 6.
5 and 6. Yeah. So we know this because the way that you always communicate the timeline is by showing us Han and Carbonite, which they did in this trailer.
Han and Carbonite, and obviously Jabba is still alive. So you're like, oh, okay, we know where this is now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you follow a scoundrel, a smuggler, a Han Solo type, one might say, named Cal Vess or something like that. Let me just double check what that actually is, what her actual name is. But the point being that it is like an open world Star Wars game where you can travel between Kay Vess, that's her name, Kay. We can travel between different planets, including what looks like Tatooine and Canto Bight, and there's some others that people have recognized in there as well.
Yeah.
And you can freely roam around, doing missions, and I guess it's kind of like a big heist game. That's the kind of the theme of it. Pretty cool. Obviously, you don't have a lightsaber in this, but that's fine. You don't have not every Star Wars game requires that you have a lightsaber.
Yeah.
So they just released the story trailer. This is how we learned all this. You're a smuggler. You're trying to take down. It's following these different crime syndicates, right? Crimson Dawn is referenced there, and the Pikes and the Hutts, obviously.
Yeah.
In fact, so much so that we got a glimpse at what's her name? Kira, right, from Solo. And that's cool. It's because we haven't seen her since that, and unlikely we may never see her again in live action.
Maybe you get to see. Although I feel like they would have put him in. I was like, maybe you get to see Maul. But
it's possible. I don't think they would reveal that in the trailer.
No,
though. So that's fine. Enough. It's possible if Crimson Dawn's involved, Maul, I'm sure will make some type of appearance, or cool. his presence will be felt in some way.
Yeah.
There is speculation that Dr. Aphra might make an appearance in some way.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So that's kind of cool.
She's so cool.
I disagree. I find her mostly annoying. Yeah.
No, she's cool, and I don't know. She's funny. I like her.
But we also get to see, like in the trailer, there's cool stuff. Like you get to see like an all black protocol droid and stuff like that. So these are things that I guess are hints towards potentially.
Dr. Aphra has an all black protocol droid.
Exactly.
Name's 000.
That's what we're saying. So
thirsty for human blood. He's hilarious.
Yes. So we'll see. But either way, it's really far along. It's looking exciting. It's coming out August 30th, as I mentioned. Ubisoft is known for their open world games. This is an open world game, so that's good. They've had a lot of criticism as of late for their mission structure. It's like just filling the map with a lot of busy work essentially type of missions, which is not. You can turn like a 10-hour game into like a 100-hour game if you just fill it with a bunch of junk.
Right.
So, and what they've been accused of that, and I would argue that it's true. But I have never seen them make a Star Wars game. I am interested. It visually is up to par as far as I'm concerned. I was thinking while I was watching the trailer though. you know how we've been praising the animation style of
Right.
Lucasfilm animation for so long.
Yes.
All these Star Wars games try to replicate like the photoreal look, you know,
Right,
or stylized reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is nobody saying, why don't we take the LucasArts, Lucasfilm animation style
Yeah.
animation and turn that into a game?
That would be cool. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Imagine a Bad Batch game like that. That'd
Like
be
that
so
would be
cool.
quite neat. Yeah. I totally agree because I just feel like not a lot of times with video games, but it's either really good or it's like meh.
Well, I just feel
these
like
days.
people are complaining about her facial animations and all these other things where it's like you can turn down people's expectations by putting on a more timeless art style.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And actually it would make it easier to develop, like it's less art assets and all these other things. Maybe, you know, I think part of it is that there's a massive catalog of digital assets available to these.
Right,
So it's like, hey, I'm making a Star Wars game. Here's the book on assets. Here, you know, there's the TIE Fighter, and here's the Stormtrooper, and you know, and if you're all using the same engine or similar engines, Unreal Engine or something like that, then you can easily just throw these character models in, and then it all looks right.
Especially with like with like ships and weapons and vehicles and.
But don't you think that? Don't you think that Lucasfilm would have digital assets for the things that they've done in?
Oh, I'm sure they would, animation? But they probably wouldn't give it to.
Why not?
I don't know.
And like the thing is, it's like what they're doing now, which is so amazing, is this dynamic lighting, which we get a really good, nice, like there's some beautiful shots in this episode of Bad Batch we'll talk about. But, you know, video games are very capable of dynamic lighting now. So if you just, you know, pop these character designs in with the kind of the matte finish look that those characters have, I think it would look really cool. So anyway, that's nothing to do with Outlaws, but I was thinking about that as kind of maybe that's a way that we could get more Star Wars games more quickly and then tie them into some of the animated stuff, which is obviously quite popular.
You should write them an email.
I was thinking a letter.
Yeah, no one writes letters these days.
Exactly, which is
good
why
old-fashioned letter.
Which is why I feel like you'd get more attention.
Dear Star Wars.
Dear Mr.
Dear game
Wars.
developers.
First name Star.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that is neither here nor there. Any other thoughts on Outlaws?
No, I mean it looks fun. I would probably play it, but I probably shouldn't say that. I was like, I'm gonna wait till it's cheaper.
Well, yeah, that's fair. I think that is fair.
I'm gonna wait till I can, I don't know, maybe get it cheaper after somebody else has already played it.
It is a premium cost game. I mean, it's a $90 Canadian, $80 US video game.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a bunch of premium editions that are stupid expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a lot of people pointed this out, and I'll just echo this, which is it's cool to imagine just jumping on a speeder bike and being able to go wherever in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's very true.
And you know, the Jedi games, although great, aren't really open world. They're kind of like large open spaces that you can traverse, and they're more like a Metroid game. And I like that about them.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to imagine, like, okay, it's kind of like GTA, but Star Wars is a very fun idea.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're right in the like prime of the Imperial era. You know, between 5 and 6, so you really get the best of the best in terms of like the scoundrels and all that kind of stuff. Definitely. And there's not really a lot of Jedi around, so you know, don't have to worry too much about that. What?
That looks like I know there's probably
one of Dr. Aphra's.
Yeah, it kind of looks like her droid BT.
Maybe it's possible,
but it could also just be a Black Empire.
Yeah.
I don't. They're not R2s, but they're
Astromechs.
Like Chopper, Astromechs. But
anyway, we get a shot of Jabba in this, by the way, and you get to go to Jabba's palace. And anytime you get to go to Jabba's palace, it's always fun. I'm not going to complain too much. Anyway, the story trailer's out on YouTube. Go check that out. It's pretty interesting. I can't promise we'll cover it, but we'll at least talk about it because I'm likely going to buy this. It's going to probably convince me to finish Fallen Order or whatever the sequel is. Survivor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that I can be prepared for this game.
But they're not linked. Why would you?
No, I know. I just don't want to have like two Star Wars games on the go at the same time.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. It is categorized as a open world action adventure shooter.
Oh.
So as described. Description: play up to 3 days early with the No, I'm not going to read that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read that. Play up to 3 days early if you pay extra. That's
You pay
always
double
That's how
what
it
the
works.
game
Yeah,
is.
that's right. Okay. Let's get back to the meat and potatoes of this episode. We're going to talk about The Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 12, Juggernaut. Just a quick reminder that we do record these live every Thursday evening around 8 p.m. Central Time. I think that's fair. 8-ish after 8, between 8 and 8:30. We used to say 7:30 and 8, but that's not realistic. So sometimes between 8 and 8:30. We love it if you join us in the on again Twitch or YouTube at Tower Babblecast on either one of those, and join us in the chat. Be part of the show. It's a lot of fun. We've had a great time with the chat over the last couple of weeks. Okay, let's get into the episode. So this is the IMDb logline. While seeking an unexpected source, the Batch must make a daring escape. The much longer and more thorough one from StarWars.com is Omega arrives at Tantus and is quickly ordered into M-count testing by Dr. Hemlock. Emery gathers a blood sample but seems conflicted, which is a funny thing to include in an overview. Meanwhile, the Bad Batch discuss their options in locating the Imperial facility. Though it pains him, Crosshair suggests they find Admiral Rampart currently held in a labor camp on Erebus. Along with Fee, they set out to break into the prison and secure Rampart. It's directed by Brad Rao and Stuart Lee, written by Dave Filoni and Jennifer Corbett. Initial thoughts on this episode, Rachel?
Yeah, it was like I'm not mad at it. It's just it's for me it was more of a setup episode than anything. Like it's not that it wasn't. We learned some new things, which is always good. We learned a couple new things, and I was surprised to see Rampart. That is not where I
don't think did anyone have predictions on that? Like, what's the over-under on that one?
I thought Wolf was going to help them. That was my guess. I was like, maybe Wolf will help them. But,
could have been even I was surprised. I was kind of hoping there'd be more prisoners that they could have brought with them. Like maybe Cody was there or something like that, and that would have been fun. But yeah.
But I mean, it was definitely cool to learn a little bit more, kind of about the M-Count Omega thing and whatnot. So. Yeah,
did we learn anything new about that? I don't think we do.
A little bit. He kind of just explained.
But we knew all that already.
I know. He just explained it a little bit more, I guess, but about her blood and I don't know. This is a very short episode. Very short.
We only have 3 left in the season now.
Yeah.
And, my opinion on this, I came out of it really liking the pace. I felt like this is breezy. They're really not wasting any time. Let's get in and out and make this count, whatever, right? Especially if we have to work off the premise that they're still having to figure out what Tantus is, which has been like this nagging thing all season long.
Yeah.
Right. But the more I thought about it and the more I read about it and the more stuff I watched about the episode, the less I liked it, because not to say I'm easily influenced, though I may be. It's that several people made a really good point, and I can't really refute it, which is that this episode spins its wheels in a season where we don't have time to spin wheels on information that we already know being revealed to the characters, which makes the show is unsatisfying as an audience member, because we already know all this information and we saw all of this already. At the very end, when she's introduced to these kids in the vault, it's played like this big reveal, but we spent a whole episode there, and so
I feel
that it just feels so anticlimactic, and ultimately it's just a lot of moving pieces around in again in a time frame where we don't really have time to play this kind of pre-finale stuff. Not like this anyway. I don't know.
To me, it felt like this. It's like they didn't have enough room to put it, in the previous episodes, and not quite enough room into what's coming next. So they kind of had to make it its own little short episode in the middle.
But why not just make this why not make the last episode longer and include the part with Hemlock in it? Or why not Yes, right. Well, no. I just mean the part with Rampart, with Hemlock, where he introduces her to the vault.
Yeah,
whatever. That could have been
the end of the.
That could have been the final stinger in that battle episode or whatever.
Yeah,
right. And or include this bit with more from Rampart into a longer story like that just follows them, and we don't really need to know what's going on with Omega because, again, we already know what's going on over there.
Yeah, exactly. No, so, I feel you. It did. Like I said, it kind of just felt like a segue episode, right? Like it was just our characters needed to figure out a way to get to each other right again. So and we needed a way for that to happen. Yeah.
I just don't. I hate to write the show as they say.
I know,
but it is frustrating. So I mean, again, largely speaking, I liked a lot of the actual action beats, and what we do get is fun enough, but I don't think we have time for fun. No offense.
I know what you mean, yeah, because it is the last season, so that's why it kind of feels like you just want so much more out of every episode.
Exactly. Yeah. We just don't have time to be, going off on these Adventure of the Week episodes with, on the fourth to last episode of the series.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's kind of like how I felt about the episode with Fennec when they're going after the bug.
Right,
guy.
Which is exactly. Like it's another example of like, well, we had to do this thing to get to this other thing. Where it's like, just skip to the thing that's important.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't know what the run times of these next episodes are going to be. They could be 23 minutes. They could be shorter. I suspect that the finale is going to be at least an hour. That's my guess. I don't think you have to so again, let's just quickly look at the episode titles here, and we can speculate a little bit more now that we're a little bit closer. We have a sense of how this is going to work. So we have Into the Breach, Flash Strike, and the Cavalry has arrived.
Right.
This to me sounds like we're already going after Tantus next week.
Yeah,
So, okay.
That's got to be.
Or it's the beginning of that. It's continued in episode 14, Flash Strike, and then they get into trouble, and then the Cavalry arrives in episode 15.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe rethinking this, maybe the last two are extended episodes. But if you want to do an extended finale, you could presumably wrap up the Tantus bit, and then, either set up the next series, whatever that is going to be, or kind of put a bow on everything, right? The Bad Batch go live in retirement, or or here's their funeral, or whatever. I don't know. Like we don't know how it's all going to end, right?
Yeah. No, I know. You're right. Yeah.
Again, but 3 episodes. It's really coming on fast. This is got a 7.6 on IMDb as a rating. This episode did. Here's what one IMDb reviewer had to say. From &Mickelson _Mickelson. They gave it an 8 out of 10, titled Exciting and Fun. I'm glad after 2 major episodes with a lot happening and some bigger revelations, we didn't get an episode afterwards that felt like a complete waste of time. I mean, we just spent a whole 20 minutes talking about how we felt it was a waste of time, but different strokes. Well, nothing big happened. We still felt like the plot moved forward as the Batch are trying to locate Tantus, and we see what happens to Omega after she arrives. Nothing really happens to Omega after she arrives. That's the first thing. We learn no new information. All we get to really see is that Emery's still conflicted. That's really all we get to see.
Yeah. I wish they gave us a little more with Emery.
Yeah.
Just give us. Yeah, I don't know.
Having another conversation with Hemlock, or
a longer conversation with Omega about how she's feeling about things.
Right.
That would have been nice to put into this, maybe. But
or her preparing her for you're gonna see something really crazy, but try not to freak out or whatever.
Not just her just being sigh.
Yeah, there's a lot of sighs.
There's a lot of sighs. Yeah.
The plot does technically move forward.
It does,
but not very much. Like my point, because again, what we get here is Rampart saying, "Oh no, I don't actually know the information, but I know how we can get around that, or whatever." So there's going to have to be another step to the finding where Tantus's plan, right?
Which, again,
it's like a half step forward.
Why you couldn't put that in this episode? But I guess maybe we'll see.
Exactly. It's extend this episode another 2 minutes and have him explain why he doesn't why it's complicated. He literally says it's complicated, and we're just supposed to say, "Okay, cool."
Yeah, especially nobody knows where it is. It's okay.
Someone knows. Yeah, exactly.
Somebody,
The mission was exciting, well-paced, and mostly fun to watch. It was well-directed, animated, and the soundtrack created that level of intensity that just elevates it all a little bit. Is this the same person? Because
I was gonna say I noticed
all exclamation marks.
I noticed all
again.
the exclamation marks, but it's a different username.
Interesting. Is everyone?
It's just one.
Maybe this person's just making different
multiple handles and multiple reviews.
Now we can only guess what comes next. We're closing in on the finale, and we can tell as the goal becomes clear. Well, again, it's not clear. All we know is that they're still trying to rescue Omega. And what's most frustrating about that is that was the goal at the very first episode of the season.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's true.
Again, I'm not writing the show here, but it's just a little frustrating. This other review doesn't have any information. It says good but a little disappointing, 7 out of 10, which feels a lot closer to how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the episode as a whole. Okay. So we start on Tantus, and we begin with Omega being delivered to Tantus Base aboard that CX Dagger ship in a rainstorm. Very cool, moody visuals. The Screen Crush folks pointed out that the theme music, or maybe not necessarily a theme, but the synthy score, very reminiscent of the Order 66. No, that's not right. Not Order 66, because that's a great theme from John Williams.
Yeah.
But the inhibitor chip theme.
Oh, okay.
Which is very like, you remember hearing it a lot in the final season of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Again, very synthy, dark, heavy is how I'd put it. Hemlock is there to greet her. He says that turning herself over was a wise decision. And obviously he thinks that. Everyone seems to think that, because even the Bad Batch think that's the case. So I think that's funny. She's led through the facility into the lab. We get to see that there's a lot of additional security, a lot more troopers being about the facility this time. They're not taking any chances this time. Dr. Carr is in the lab, and Hemlock wants her to start testing her for confirmation immediately. So at first, Dr. Carr, or Emery, as she calls her, hesitates, but continues to do her work. Omega says, "Emery, you don't have to do this," which is very similar to what she said to Crosshair at the very first episode of this series, about how I know what you're going to do, but I don't do it. She says to Crosshair that first episode. Again, kind of showing off that she has this really strong, empathetic side to her. People with long time thought that meant that she was force sensitive. We still don't know the answer to that question ultimately. If she actually has a high M count, or if her blood is just this special binder. Pardon me, I'm coming down from a cold.
Yeah, that's I guess that's true. Hey, they still haven't really given us those little tidbits yet about what exactly is, if she has midichlorians or not. So, well, everybody's supposed to, right?
It's in all living things.
Yes, okay.
But
higher counts.
It's about how much you have, I guess.
Yeah. And her blood can stabilize replicated ones.
Well, we'll get to that. There's a whole explanation that's provided. But again, we mostly knew all this information already. Yeah. Anyway, Omega is trying to convince her to, like, hey, you don't have to be involved in this whole garbage. We're sisters, remember?
Right.
But this is so funny. Her response is, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're safe. Because she's like, yeah, I actually do have to do this work. You don't understand. Mm-hmm. I actually do. But I'm happy you're safe. And I love Omega's response. She's like, am I safe? Question mark.
Right, yeah.
Because I think that's like a great, just like instant rebuttal to what feels like a kind of cop-out answer. Mm-hmm. Right? Am I safe? And she's like, oh, good question.
Yeah.
I just saw these kids being tortured, so...
Yeah, they stole a baby. So it's
an actual baby.
Real bad. Yeah, for a second I thought maybe Emery wasn't going to take her blood or was going to do something, but she's still in it.
There's too much of a watch. Yeah, she's still doing it. Remember we talked, I think last week, when we spent, a long time talking about how she's still technically a bad guy here. I know she's going to have a redemption moment. but and it's probably going to cost her life, I'm guessing.
And I mean, she's seen exactly what they did to Nala Se for doing the same thing. Like,
right.
For
Well, Nala Se just got locked up. She didn't get killed, at least.
No, she got locked up, but still, like, Emery probably doesn't want to be locked up either. So
yeah, no, fair enough.
You know, but,
although, as we pointed out, she technically already is.
Yeah.
She's
100%.
just a
different sort of prisoner.
Yeah, just a different sort of prisoner. It's not like she can leave if she wants to.
Yeah.
So, I quit. Okay, well then you're just going to prison then.
Yeah.
All right. So, interesting enough scene. Again, this episode has such a fast pace that even this moment, because we end with her, giving a little sigh or whatever, a moment with her being like, "Oh man, am I really doing the right thing?" or whatever. But we get so little time to spend with this to digest it. So instead, we just jump right to Pabu, and we get a really beautiful night shot of Pabu with the Venator still overhead. Beautiful. You could put that on. Yeah, that's a poster. You could put that on your wall.
It's very cool. I just love seeing. I always love seeing the scale. It's like Pabu's like its whole own little city, right?
Yeah.
Like
Space
it's
Grease.
small. It's not big by any means, but yeah. Then you just see this like big Venator like over top, just like looming over, and oh man, it's always so cool getting to see how big those things actually are.
Yeah, I think they have official scales. It's like,
I know,
half a kilometer,
but I'm not going to go
like that,
look that
or a kilometer
up.
long.
Yeah. I like seeing it because so often you just see them in space with other ones, and
right?
like
And
other
you lose
small
scale.
ships, and you're like, whatever. You don't get to see the scale when they're actually like over top of a population. It's very cool.
We talked about this last week. It's just just such a good shorthand view of kind of like the iron fist of the Empire.
Very imposing. Yeah.
Okay. So Hunter is watching as gunships return to the cruiser. He notes that the troopers have all left, but their comms are still being jammed. Wrecker is giving Crosshair the gears. This dialogue feels a little forced. It's like, I still can't believe we missed this whole original. Like, why did we miss the original interaction where they had to confront the fact that they let Omega go?
Yeah, like what? Yeah.
It just feels like, okay, I understand. Again, we don't have a lot of time, but extend the episode like 1 minute.
Yeah.
And we could have that original interaction.
Yeah, this confrontation, or because that's what we were expecting was going to happen, to have a little bit more conflict with him,
right? But
letting her go. But
we were worried that there would be too much conflict with that.
Yeah,
but
there's just none.
Instead, there's none at all.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
Yeah, we thought maybe one of the townspeople would have to step in and be like, no, like she saved us all, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I definitely thought that more Pabu was going to be burning when we came back to it. I didn't think that the Empire was just going to leave, as quietly as they are.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess, like, Pabu doesn't really have any strategic, benefit to the Empire.
No, but the Empire is just like that. Like
no, they are, but this is like
but
such
maybe they're not quite there yet with, like, just burning things to prove a point. Right?
Well, they are, but this specific unit is kind of, they're special forces, essentially, right? They're there specifically to capture Omega, and that was it.
Yeah.
And, given the timeline, this picks up right immediately after last week, so this is moments or maybe an hour after the events of last week, and Omega is now returned to Tantus separately. So the rest of the cruiser is just packing up still.
Yeah.
But
I just thought there might be a little bit more of a hunt for the Bad Batch guys, or...
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care, yeah. I thought they would give a little bit more of a shit about them, but they just don't.
Well, so it is what it is. It's like that was the threat from last week. We don't need to retread it this week, and that's fine. But so as I said, Wrecker is giving Crosshair the gears a bit. Crosshair rebukes that, if she didn't, if she had not turned herself in, the Empire would have destroyed the whole island. And so turning herself in saved a town, in essence saying that she acted heroically.
Right.
She did the right thing.
Yeah, she did.
Which I guess is the argument that he originally made to kind of calm them down when they found out that she was taken.
Yeah.
But they seem over it now. So, again, just odd choices this week. So Wrecker is also frustrated that the Empire, has Omega again. Just in general, he's frustrated about that, and that's fair. But they also that they don't have a ship. They're stuck there. But that problem is solved immediately.
Yeah. Which I figured that's how they were going to get off the island, was Fee was going to show up.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
It was like, well, yeah.
Especially because she was in the trailer, and this episode is prominently featured in the trailer, and all that stuff, which is so, I mean, not necessarily surprising.
No.
Hunter points out that even if they had a ship, they still don't know where Tantus base is located. Crosshair reveals that, something he probably should have mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, we spent actual time of, runtime in this series talking about, having rescued or escaped from Tantus, what that means, people questioning them, and he never thought to reveal this information. And his excuse is two things: that that Admiral Rampart, who is the person that he has in mind around this, is not trustworthy, but also that he doesn't want to go back. He's like, it's not a place I ever really wanted to go back to. Tantus is not a place I ever wanted to go back to. And we see his hand; it shakes, and we get this sense that that's traumatic for him.
Right.
But why are we only talking about this now?
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I know. It just seems kind of silly. Where it's just like, why would you have never brought this up before? Even because remember that Clone X was like saying stuff to him, the first Clone X,
right?
Like, why aren't you asking him, like, where?
Right,
Tantus
exactly.
is? Like, and it's like, it's like, so he did know, or not that he knew, but he like could get them back there,
right? So his plan is that he knows Admiral Rampart had sent Nala Se there when Topoka City was quote unquote decommissioned,
right?
And that he knows, he was still working for the Empire when he was arrested, right? And used as a political scapegoat, as what Star Wars calls it.
I'm surprised Rampart is still alive, to be completely honest. Like, I feel like it's convenient that he's still alive and he's needed, but like, I feel like in real time, or like a real Empire, real Star Wars, like, he would have been killed. Like, the Empire,
like, you don't mess around. It's like there's too many questions that it raises.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Emperor Palpatine's not just gonna leave this guy around that he's using as a scapegoat when it was like 100%.
Yeah,
him.
but you're building a Death Star, so you need as much free labor.
You need that extra dude, that extra one.
I
guy.
guess I feel you on that, because I think it does feel like a strategic error on the Empire's part to not just ice him like in the back room that afternoon.
Exactly. Like, I know there's like a whole trial, and like I think Palpatine used it as a big show.
Right.
To show that, like, I didn't want that to happen. Like, that's unforgivable.
Right.
Blah 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 blah. Like, he used it as a political move. So I guess maybe that's why he can't just like back.
Yeah, but he could have easily had anybody kill him at any time.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't like.
That's why it.
Maybe he just feels like he's not big. He's too much of a.
That's true.
Once he's already like, the problem wasn't Rampart so much as the plan to destroy Topoka City was revealed. So he used Rampart as a scapegoat. But he doesn't really. But Rampart's a small piece of his puzzle, so maybe he doesn't even think about him that much.
That's true.
It's that line from Mad Men, and it's like, "You ruined my life." He's like, "I don't even know who you are," or whatever. I don't think about you at all.
Yeah. I never watched Mad Men. Sorry.
I don't know that. I don't. I've never seen Mad Men either, but I know that that's from Mad Men. I think
that makes sense.
So anyway, or was that? I think that's what it was. Anyway, so he's still alive, but not trustworthy, as Crosshair points out. So he knows where he was put after he was arrested. Yeah. But before we can reveal what that is, he's interrupted by Fee and AZ, who emerge from a hidden cavern access after she docked her ship, allowing her to enter undetected. So they're inside that like museum thing inside at the top of the city.
Yes.
Yeah. And there is a secret elevator that leads from the bottom of the mountain.
Yes.
Through the middle of the mountain.
I guess so, yeah. Into
the
museum.
Into the museum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's just wild that we're only finding out about it now.
Yeah, like the Bad Batch didn't know about it either.
Yeah. And is it from the same cave, do you think, where everyone parks their hidden...
I don't know. Like, because you think that'd be a good spot to like hide Omega.
Right. Exactly.
But, yeah.
If it would have been, if literally anybody knew where that was, that would have been a great hiding spot.
Yeah, they could have hid their ship there. Like,
who would have known? I guess, like, would Shep have known? He must have known.
Yeah,
right?
I would assume.
I don't know.
But...
Anyway, maybe they didn't have time to convey that information.
Yeah.
I just think it's just so weird. Like, we're having this important conversation, and then Fee and AZ just pop up through the ground.
Show up through the floor.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just odd choices, as I said, odd choices.
Yeah.
So Fee and AZ emerge, and this is the first time that Fee has ever met Crosshair.
Right.
So that's a fun side bit here. He says, or she says, that Tech had mentioned his quote unquote sparkling personality,
right?
Which is funny. And at first, Crosshair's on the defensive. It's like, oh well, of course you would have said that, and she's like, no. Any friend of Brown Eyes is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So she's happy to help. She doesn't really know the story here, other than the Empire was there.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe she overheard them mentioning that Omega was taken, but that's not really technically conveyed either. Although she's not there, so it's kind of like an obvious kind of thing. And then, but she's gung ho to get going.
Yeah.
Classic pirate move.
Yeah.
So she'll loan them her ship, or they'll travel on her ship, and they're off to an Imperial labor camp on Erebus.
Mm-hmm.
That's the plan. Any other thoughts on this first
No,
sequence?
I mean, I think we kind of went through it. I was going to say the same thing about how, the secret passageway was funny that just came out of nowhere. But yeah, I mean, it ties it up relatively quick, but there's conversations that we missed out on that would have been nice to maybe have, but that's whatever.
Yeah, but instead we got action.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we go next to Erebus, which StarWars.com describes as, on the muddy planet of Erebus, Imperial strip mining has left the terrain pockmarked. Oh, that's an interesting term I haven't heard in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Pockmarked and barren. Among the sparse defining features of the world are an Imperial prison and its checkpoint tower, sending inmates out to earn their keep each day at their labor camps inside a nearby mine.
Right.
And then Erebus, I looked it up, is an actual word. It's defined as, by Merriam-Webster, a personification of darkness in Greek mythology, a place of darkness in the underworld on the way to Hades.
Okay.
So, kind of like a spooky purgatory kind of situation, which I think is a good way of describing a prison camp.
Yeah. So I have a question. Have we seen this place before? Okay, I thought that the bridge that they were on looked so similar to
the one at the end of season 6 of Clone Wars.
The one that Anakin basically commits war crimes on, and they do that whole with the clones underneath it, and I thought it looked the same to me.
That is I thought so too. I think the reason for that is, again, we talked about assets earlier at the top of
They just reused an asset.
I think they redressed an asset.
Fair
so
enough.
they're like, we have this bridge design already.
Yeah.
We can just plop it onto this terrain. We kind of paint it a different color or whatever.
That's fine.
Add some features and that's it.
Yeah.
I think that it's not an accident that those are similar.
Okay, because it looked so similar that I was like, oh, is that the same place? And they just turned it into, or whatever.
Yeah, so we've never been here before,
okay,
and I think it would have been fun to have actually gone to the same prison camp that we go to in Rogue One, which is cool. Wabani.
Yeah.
But we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. I mean, you could argue that if we did, it makes the world feel small, but also at the same time, it's an interesting idea to go revisit. Where do you know that prison camp uses the turbo tanks? So it would have made sense, I think, in this case. And maybe it's for a political prisoner like him, it might have made sense. Doesn't matter. It's cool to understand that all the Imperial prison camps use similar methodology.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we go to, so we're on Erebus. The first shot is what appears to be like this giant dam construction thing that is protecting a mine. I just thought that all of the planet side stuff that we see on Erebus is just stunning. Even though it's a pretty barren landscape, I thought the vehicles looked great. The lighting on everything is really solid. There's even the shot of the stormtrooper standing in the sun, and it's like, wow, what a great shot.
Yeah.
Or a TK trooper. So I just thought everything looked really, really pretty from just a animation standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So we see a Juggernaut crossing a bridge, and it parks at some type of facility. Inside, we see Rampart. Inside that facility, we see Rampart working and getting lip from an Ugnaught who's giving him a hard time around how he's doing his work. He's like, don't give me a hard time. You're the one slowing us down.
I love Ugnaughts.
Yeah, me too. We see Rampart has a new look here, obviously in his orange prison jumpsuit, but also rocking a beard.
A beard. Makes sense. Don't get to shave when you're in
Don't
prison.
get to shave as much anyway.
On a prison planet, yeah.
StarWars.com talks about Vice Admiral Edmund Rampart this way. After the fall of the Republic, Vice Admiral Edmund Rampart eagerly took on the role of overseeing the clone troopers on Kamino for the new Galactic Empire. In the early days of the regime, Rampart's loyalty to Governor Tarkin and the rest of the Imperials was unquestioned. But after damaging evidence of his order to destroy Tipoca City came to light on the floor of the Galactic Senate, Rampart was arrested, standing accused as a traitor to the Empire despite his protestations that he was simply following orders.
Right.
Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Now he works for the Empire in a new capacity. That's cheeky. As an inmate at a forced labor camp on Erebus.
Yeah.
That's funny. Meanwhile, aboard Fee's ship, she's able to acquire an overview of the camp, so they get a map. She can get them in undetected via the tricks of the trade. Again, pirate stuff. But as she says, once you're past the perimeter, they've got guards, sensors, and scouts. You're on your own once you're dropped down in there. Wrecker laughs that off, though, as not being really an issue.
Right.
Give me a real challenge.
Yeah, which that's seen in the trailer, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's a good line.
It is, yeah.
He has two really good lines in this episode, in my opinion. Hunter quickly draws up a plan. I love when they're working together to come up with a plan. It's always fun watching that happen. We've got to tap into the prisoner data bank and pinpoint Rampart's location. Crosshair suggests using a terminal at the checkpoint. Fee will be their escape once they have him. Mm-hmm. As they arrive at Erebus, Fee uses a power-down stealth approach to dive past some Imperial ships before pulling up at the last minute to gently drop them off on the surface. It's again, classic pirate move.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's classic pirate move, but it's also classic kind of Rebels move because
power down.
That's something that like the Phoenix Squadron, like Hera does all the time, where they like power down the ghost or whatever. I do find it really funny in Star Wars how just turning off your ship and your droids, like no one can see you.
Yeah.
It's like they don't have any sort of
sensors, not on your sensors.
Yeah, they don't have any sort of like other sensors that just notice.
Well, if they looked at their window, they might have seen them.
Windows, yeah, but a lot of those like ships don't have big windows or anything.
It's true.
Like that. But I do think it's funny that it's just like, you can just like fully just drop out of the sky and no one's gonna notice.
I like it because it like maintains kind of like a simple understanding of the rules. Yeah. Right. If you're powered down, you can't be seen on sensors.
Yeah.
Got it. Understood. Because if anyone could see anybody at any time, it's like it's less.
It's always so hard.
Interesting.
It's hard to write on how to get into somewhere, into a planet or whatever. So I do like that. But I just like she's just free falling out of the sky, basically.
It's a good atmosphere. Look. Yeah, it's a good look. It looks really cool. The ships that we see them past are those giant cargo ships. The last time we saw those was on Sereno last season during the episode Spoils of War and Ruins of War.
Oh yeah, that's the Count Dooku's planet. Sereno.
When they were loading up Dooku's treasure.
Right, yes.
Right? That's when we saw that really cool clone captain with the black armor.
Oh, yes,
or the black pauldron and the cool haircut.
Yeah. Cool haircut.
Yeah, remember? And that's when it was Rampart that just shoots him, remember, and like drops him off that side of that cliff.
Yes.
Cool episode that those two were. So anyway, I just thought that was like a cool entrance sequence. They get dropped off on the ground. The batch infiltrates a checkpoint at the end of the bridge. They ambush two troopers on guard and download info on Rampart's whereabouts. I loved that they had this funny banter. Classic Star Wars clone stormtrooper stuff.
Yeah.
I think they say maybe in our next mission we'll get some action or whatever.
Yeah.
And then just get instantly knocked out.
Just instantly, yeah.
And also interesting that they use the stun setting here, and I just feel like it's so random at this point between
when they
they're
use stun and when they don't. Yeah. To me, it always feels like stun is used when they're kind of acting first or when they don't need to kill.
If it's a head-to-head combat, like if they're going to try to kill me, I'm going to try to kill them.
Exactly. Like if they're being shot at, it's like, okay.
But these guys had no idea they were there, so it's kind of like
they're
whatever.
just like, we'll just stun them and like, put them in a closet.
It feels more like fair that way, I guess. I like the idea. It's like stun them and then just drop them off the bridge.
So awful.
So funny. Okay. So back inside the facility, Rampart is complaining about their shift going into overtime. He can't understand the Ugnaught and doesn't speak their language. But he doesn't have to wait long as they hear the whistle signifying the end of their shift, and they make their way outside to be handcuffed and transported back into the prison aboard a Juggernaut assault carrier which we also saw being used as a prison transport in Rogue One, as we mentioned already.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as a turbo tank. The Bad Batch identifies Rampart's location, agreeing that the easiest plan is to intercept him aboard the Juggernaut, right? And this is when I get this great other line from Wrecker. Take on a turbo tank? Now you're talking. Right? It's so funny to me.
Yeah.
But they can't take it head on, so they decide to hide under the tank as it passes by. With the Bad Batch in position, Hunter instructs them on the plan. And this is what I mean. Like, we go beat to beat to beat here so fast.
It is nice. I like the quick,
not wasting time.
Not a lot of standing around hatching a plan. It's just like, we're going to do this, and then they go do it.
But instead of using that extra time to do anything, they just shorten the episode.
Yeah, that's true.
So, anyway, whatever.
It's true.
So, with the Bad Batch in position, Hunter instructs them on the plan. He'll secure the controls while the two others grab Rampart. They get aboard using their grapnel guns. This is like their Batman gun, essentially. Yeah. They can like stick it to anything and like pull themselves up.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
Love it.
And it's like, you're telling me that Wrecker's just pulling himself up by one hand as he's being, come on. You know? Anyway, I'm not gonna complain about
Whenever you see grappling guns, they're always, I don't know.
Yeah, none of them really make any sense.
No.
The only one that's ever made sense was when, I can't remember which Batman movie, where he shoots it and then attaches it to his belt, and that pulls him up.
Yeah. I was just watching the Batman movie the other day, and it's the one where he shoots his grappling gun through the wall, and then so it can go through the wall,
and
but then apparently
up.
It's strong enough to swing an entire like bank vault back into the building, and I was like, okay, that's a bit much.
Okay, yeah, but if you're watching Batman stuff, you can't get held up on the gadgets. The gadgets always work as though we're supposed to, regardless of whether they make sense or not.
I was like, that wall would not held that weight.
No, it would not.
Yeah, I was cracking up.
Well, let me tell you about the Fast and Furious 5.
I don't,
because in that one they drag a giant bank vault around by a car, and that also doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Where was I? So they jump aboard the turbo tank, and this trips a sensor, causing a trooper to go check it out. And then the driver is surprised when Wrecker is the one that returns. Well, was it anything? It was so funny. Anyway, knocks him right out.
Yeah, I love that. I like that scene a lot.
Exactly.
And it's always that kind of arrogance of the Empire too, where it's like there's only two guys.
They're
it's like
really
a driver and a guard. That's it. Like, and I know that they're only there to guard the prisoners who are handcuffed and like all that, right? They're not expecting to be.
That's kind of how all the prisons work. It's like if all the prisoners work together, you could overthrow all these people because there's so fewer of them.
There's so few. Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we saw in Andor, right?
Yeah. There's only like a handful. I think technically in the real world, there's like you're supposed to try to keep like a certain ratio between prisoners to guards.
Yeah.
But
it's never 1-to-1, obviously.
Well, no, that would not be practical.
No.
Yeah. Are they getting coached by each individual? Yeah, they're all therapists. So anyway, they knock out the driver and secure the cockpit for Hunter. I always thought that was funny because like we just 2 seconds ago he's like, I'll secure the cockpit, and then it was Wrecker that secures the cockpit.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, Hunter stays behind to drive. Crosshair remarks that the transport is magnetically sealed and suggests Plan 55. After taking a second to recall it, Wrecker agrees and gets in position to execute the plan, which turns out it is just mostly Crosshair using that magnetically sealed walls to bounce a shot around the room, taking out most of the guards with Wrecker there to clean up the rest. So, like, I don't know. The plans are always like, it's always going to be some wacky thing, and I'm fine with that.
It's like bouncing
but like,
things around the room.
What's Wrecker's job here even? Like, do you remember Plan 55? I'm just shoot them. That's the plan. Okay, got it.
Do they use Plan 55 before?
I don't think so.
Though?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, because I was just getting like a flashback of like, when Crosshair and Hunter are on that really awful mission that Crosshair ends up shooting that hostage in, and like they're using like the mirrors and stuff to like shoot in because they're on the bottom of the stairwell and they have to go up,
right?
And they keep using like the mirrors that they're like throwing on the walls to like bounce blaster bolts and stuff.
Yeah, according to this, it only appears in according to Wikipedia, it only appears in those one episode. I assume that they just use different numbers for everyone.
Yeah, they just
right. Yeah. Anyway, it's not much of a plan, but it works. They take out all of the guards really quickly. Notice not stunned this time. They just kill them all. Yeah. So that's fair enough. And it's important to note the reason that they say that they remark that it's magnetically sealed is because the first time we ever heard that was in episode 4, in A New Hope, when they're in the trash compactor.
Yes.
And that shot bounces around and like, you're going to get us killed.
Yeah.
We already tried that. It's magnetically sealed.
Right.
Right? So that's why they felt like they needed to say that. And that's fine. I like the consistency.
I like that. Yeah. I like when they do little, that's like an Easter egg to me almost.
It is an Easter egg. I think
like
that's
that
fair.
a lot.
Yeah. So the plan works to perfection. Rampart is surprised to see CT9904. He's still such a prick, which is so funny. I think that's such a good move for them to be like, he's not softened at all.
No.
He's got a nice beard now, but he's still a prick.
Yeah. Just the worst.
Because like, you know that he knows his actual name.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's like, but the first thing that comes to mind is CT9904?
Yeah.
And he's like, are you kidding me? And I love how notes, Crosshair's like, oh, you remembered me. How touching.
Yeah.
Right? Also,
to me, it's harder to remember a number than it is a name.
I feel like that is true.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not for the Bad Batch, I guess.
Maybe not. Still, I don't know. That one is probably like ingrained in him, but it's still.
It's way harder to remember a clone number than a name.
Yeah. That's wild. Crosshair's also quite accurate here. I guess Omega's kind of like coaching has helped him improve his shot.
Yeah.
Again, we agreed that it wasn't that he missed last week. It's just that he wasn't fast enough.
Right. Yeah. Right? No, he didn't miss. He just wasn't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was held up.
Well, he did technically miss, but again, not because he aimed it wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't the aim.
Yeah.
It was,
We don't know, ultimately. Maybe it was a little bit of both.
It's true.
Anyway, Rampart thinks that they're there to kill him, but that's not true. Wrecker asks about the rest of the prisoners, so they quickly stop and let them all out. We get StarWars.com gives us a rundown of the types of prisoners we get.
I definitely saw a Trandoshan.
Yeah, we get an Ugnaught, a Nimbanel, a Lutrillian, a Rhodian, and 2 Trandoshans. I don't know if I know what a Lutrillian is, to be honest. Anyway, those are all, you can find that those are the other prisoners inside the... and also, by the way, letting them out on the road next to the prison camp is like hardly a big thank you, right? But maybe that wasn't like, we're not here to rescue you, so you guys are just
I think they were using them as more of a distraction.
Yeah, but it backfires.
To like keep they thought like, oh, that'll keep the Empire busy, like keep the guards busy.
Oh, they escaped.
Yeah, like the prisoners escaped. We got to catch them all. Like they may not assume that only one of them didn't. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't work for them.
Yeah, no, not at all. In fact, like it's the exact opposite of what they hoped.
Yeah.
I feel like what's interesting is that as we see the Bad Batch kind of evolve as the Empire grows, their natural skills are still there, but they don't have the same understanding of what the strategies will be.
Right.
So they can't improvise as easily.
Yeah.
And because of that, it makes their job a lot harder, and they often lose more often because
I was going to say that too. Like their plans don't necessarily always work out as well as they were before. Like when it was during the Clone Wars, it felt like
it's easy to deal against.
Yeah.
Dumb droids.
Dumb droids. So yeah, you're right. They are having a lot more and even success rates with their plans.
And even when it was early Empire and it was still basically all the Republic, strategies and all that stuff.
Yeah, they would know.
They would have known all those things, and that's why the first season, if they felt much more capable, but now as the Empire's kind of evolved the way that they think, and it's a lot more cruel now, they're not able to anticipate that as much, and I think that's kind of a cool thing that we get to see here in action. So they stop to let out the prisoners, which causes the Imperial Control Station to notice that they've made an unscheduled stop. The local captain has them run a diagnostic on their comms, which is such an interesting first move. He does it in kind of like this kind of like offhanded way, but I guess it's like, well, if they stopped and they didn't let us know, maybe they can't let us know.
Right, yeah.
So back inside the Juggernaut, Rampart has a little bit of time to speak. They get kind of right to the point. He understands that they need something from him, but he's still really smug about the whole thing.
Of course, yeah.
He tries to negotiate, saying that he'll talk if they get him off the planet. He says, quote, "You don't get what you want if I don't get what I want." Classic Imperial stuff, really.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I think I wasn't expecting to see Rampart here today, obviously.
No, me neither.
It is kind of fun that he is here, though.
It is, yeah.
Because now they actually do have someone who knows the Imperial stuff that they can use.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Can't trust him. Can you trust him?
That's the thing. It's like, what are his underlying intentions, and is he just going to screw you over immediately? Can you trust his information? Like,
right.
He's telling you like, oh, it's really complicated to get there. It's like, is it? Like,
but that's intriguing though,
yeah,
right? So it adds a layer of intrigue, and it's like, if we're going to rely on his intel, then, and he says at the end of this episode, like, well, we're in this together. Actually says that right away.
Yeah.
We're in this together, which implies that he wants to be involved in some way, but you have to wonder what his motivations are. Like, is he trying to get back into the good graces of the Empire? Is he's gonna spring a trap on them or turn them over?
Like, does he think this is gonna? Oh, maybe if I hand over the bad batch,
right?
Like, it'll put me in the good graces of the Empire again, or the Emperor. Like, look how loyal I still am.
Right.
Even though you put me in prison.
Right.
All that.
Or is he bitter and wants revenge?
Yeah.
There's
we don't know yet.
There's lots of ways this could go. Again, he's so smarmy. I feel like you have to err on the side of he's going to betray you.
Yeah, he feels like the type that would very much try to use it to get back into some little scrap of power.
To me, it always felt like he was ideologically motivated and was less strategically sound. He would make decisions that felt quote unquote right, but didn't, as far as the Empire is concerned, but didn't necessarily like take into account a lot of the other information available or make the best use of all the best information available. It was, again, very much like, well, this is the job. This is the fastest and easiest way to get it done. Tarkin's breathing down my neck about XYZ, et cetera, right? So it's this like ideological execution of these demands, whereas there's a much more strategic implementation. Like the way that they destroyed Tapuka City didn't have to be done that way.
No.
Right? So, because it's destroying a bunch of material that they could have used. It's destroying a bunch of research they could have needed and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And, they can make the argument that they rescued all the stuff that was valuable or whatever it was. But it also exposed them politically because it's so visible to see a bombardment like that. So it feels like to me he wouldn't necessarily, in this position now, he still feels ideologically driven in the same way, that he still believes in the Empire's kind of goals. So I wouldn't trust him.
No.
It's one thing to be like, hey, I was working for this government. Turns out they were really shitty. Didn't really realize it at the time.
Right.
Or like a Thrawn type, who kind of knows that they're shitty, but still uses it to his advantage.
Right, yeah.
Who has a smarter kind of approach.
Exactly.
Whereas I don't feel like he has that. Rampart has that.
No, I can totally see him selling them out or giving them some kind of shitty false info or, not telling them the whole
I think they get the real info because otherwise they won't get there.
Well, yeah, they'll get there, but I feel like he's not going to give them all of it. Like there's going to be some little piece left that screws them over in some way or makes things harder. You know what I mean?
I feel like it'll happen on Tantus.
Yeah. Once they get there, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Anyway, back at the control station, they learn that the comms for the transport are jammed, and that it likely means it's compromised and that the speed of the tank is increasing. So they have another turbo tank, Transport 2, which they task with intercepting them and holding the bridge. Gunships are also called in, and the bollards on the bridge are being raised, sealing it off. Hunter gets them onto the bridge, but they need to take out the tank on the other end of it, and they have to do that head on. So we get some fun tank-on-tank action here. They exchange a barrage of fire and rockets. I love the rockets. So they come out like bees, and then like
bees,
and then like target onto something. It just looks a cool visual.
Yeah,
and it looks cool on the in the animation. Hunter notes that the armor is too thick and has Wrecker target the wheels. This causes the other tank to veer off course, and Hunter uses it as a ramp to jump over the wreckage. Not sure exactly how that works, but it's cool.
It's very Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, it kind of is, yeah. I mean, jumping a tank through a fiery explosion is...
Over another tank.
Another tank. Sure. Yeah. Very cool.
Good
in
stuff.
the chaos, Rampart tries to grab a blaster from a downed trooper, but Crosshair shoots the blaster out of his hands and then stuns him.
Yeah.
What was his plan there? What do you think he was trying to achieve?
Yeah, like I know. It's like he thought he was gonna get a gun and shoot all of them, and what?
In his handcuffs?
Yeah, in his handcuffs, and then get immediately caught and put back in prison.
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't make any sense. He doesn't. Yeah. Or maybe he just feels like he wants to be armed to protect himself.
Probably.
But
yeah,
obviously Crosshair's not going to let that happen.
No.
I love the whole like you're not going to kill him, and he's like, no, you're right, I'm not.
Yeah.
and then stuns him right in the head. And I think we at one point said that rifle didn't have a stun setting. We were wrong.
Yeah, it does. Just Crosshair doesn't use it very
He
often.
Just doesn't use it. Yeah. It's that sparkling personality.
Yeah.
As they barge to the other side of the bridge, the gunships are on their tail. They call Fee for a pickup. Wrecker is able to take out one of the gunships with the cannons on board the tank, but the other one is able to drop off troops aboard and take out the cannons manually.
It feels pretty
capable.
Yeah, for the Empire. I was like, whoa, okay, these guys they're doing pretty good for troopers.
But they also don't have good balance because they get knocked off the top very easily.
Wrecked.
Yeah.
Oof.
The one that gets squished against the wall.
Yeah.
The sound that they give it like
yeah.
it's like a little squeak.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's
the other ones get, what is that called? A Wilhelm scream?
Yeah.
Like, ah!
Yeah. No, the other one gets a little like squeaky whelp, and it is funny.
Yeah, it's rough.
Hunter shakes the troopers off with some fancy driving, but a third gunship arrives and gets a shot in on their axle, disabling the steering. I love the like metal on metal shearing sound that they give it. It's like shh. I can't make it with my mouth, but I just think it's a cool sound effect that they use here. As they are about to run out of road, Fee takes out the last gunship in a kind of a, how would you describe it? Like a surprise save.
Yeah.
Right. So they make a quick exit out off the top. Yeah. I love watching Threcker throw Rampart
because he's unconscious.
Yeah, just throw him. So funny.
Good.
I think his like face is all bruised up after.
100%. Yeah.
It's funny.
I love because Wrecker is like crazy strong, right?
Yes.
And we always kind of forget. I don't know why I'm not kind of forget,
well,
but until we see him do something like that.
It's because it was always silly. Like how strong are we talking here? Like,
well, we saw he was like pulling ships or
he can like lift tanks and stuff. It's wild.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
And like because there's that one episode where he's like carrying a tank gun. He like fashions a gun out of like a tank.
Yeah.
But him just like throwing Rampart like he was like a small child or a rag doll. It's so funny.
It is funny.
It's like, oh, that's great.
Anyway, he jumps aboard last second, and then the ship, the tank explodes. So that's fun. I do like Fee's little, not exactly a stealth exit, boys type line, but I think what's interesting is that if the Empire knows that they kidnapped Rampart, they'll know that Rampart has information. They might not be able to connect it back, or they'll be able to say, well, he doesn't know the location of Tantus base, so therefore it's not a problem or whatever. If I was Hemlock, I'd still want to know,
Yeah, you'd want to know, like, why do they want him, but
But this is one of those things where the Empire, because they worked on based on fear, reporting this type of information like, oh, we had a prisoner escape is not something you really want to do because it calls too much attention to your failure.
Yeah, 100%. Right? Yeah, so they might just be like, oh, we had prisoners
escape.
Right.
We
and
rounded,
but ones, I don't know, a lot of them died.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It was chaos.
Yeah.
So the information sharing, the lack of information sharing in the Empire, or the poor information sharing that the Empire has, is a big weakness for them.
Yeah. Well, they also don't know. They don't necessarily know who. Like,
well, they will be able to piece it. They'll be. Oh, yeah, that's true. They don't necessarily know
unless some of these troopers saw the Bad Batch, know who the Bad Batch are.
Yeah, but I don't think they would have. Everyone that they dealt with is either dead or unconscious. Didn't see them.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Is like they may not really know it was the Bad Batch, so then it's a little.
Yeah, but still, he's a highly valuable political prisoner. I think that's something that like Brass would want to know. Top Brass.
Yeah. No, I just mean like they'll know that Rampart's gone, obviously, but they won't necessarily know who took him. And because he is a high value, it'd be like, okay, well, maybe we're going to get a ransom or like whatever.
Right.
But yeah, we'll see.
Anyway, once in space, they wake up Rampart and they get right back to business, asking the whereabouts of Tantus. He says it's more complicated than that. It's so annoying.
Mm-hmm. I know.
No one knows the coordinates of Tantus, but that's by design, which makes sense. We know that they really want to keep it a secret. And so the best way to do that is to never give any one person all the information.
Right.
That's something Hemlock would have come up with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No one else is smart enough in the Empire to know that. Anyway, he might not know himself, but he might know a way to get around that problem.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think that is?
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, I would assume that maybe there's, I don't know what you would call it, like a certain point, like another checkpoint that you get to before you get to go to Tantus. I don't know how you would be like inputting these like coordinates into a computer and like not having that info and like, you know what I mean? Like
how would you, even if you had the information in your head, like,
yeah, like
what do you mean? You have like the space coordinates remembered in your head? It's like, it'd be like, remember these GPS coordinates.
Right.
Like, okay, it's 14, 32, 64. It's like,
which is fine to like have those, but I just mean like the person on the ship. It's like they're gonna need those coordinates somehow. Like how is they gonna get there? But
I'm thinking it's this. I think that Rampart knows where Tantus gets its supplies from.
Right. Okay.
And their plan will be to steal a supply ship that is, or sneak aboard a supply ship that is scheduled to return to Tantus.
Yeah.
And then use that as a way in.
That's what I mean, about like a checkpoint. Like there's another, like, you know, you got to go to a certain moon or a certain planet or whatever, and then like from there you can get to Tantus, and it's like there's specific like ships and stuff that go there. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Unless he just knows someone, but
yeah, but like, that would be so disappointing.
I was like,
it's another bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to Tantus for the final moments here. Back with Omega. We see that indeed her blood is still important. Shocker. To some disappointment, though, from Emery, it seems, because she's kind of like, darn, I was really hoping this wasn't going to be this straightforward. So I could maintain my complicated moral, I guess, hoops that I'm jumping through to try to justify this for myself. Anyway, Hemlock arrives, and Emery lets him know that her blood sample yielded a favorable M-count replication, as expected. Omega doesn't know what that means, so Hemlock offers to show her. As they leave, we see a final shot of Emery as she sighs, conflicted. Remember what the very StarWars.com beginning thing said, that, and I thought it was odd to include this in a recap, but seems conflicted was how they talked about Emery. Yeah. Right? I just feel like this episode would have hit so much harder if we hadn't had that really amazing episode in the vault.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, the challenge is, I guess, how do you have that episode after this episode? Yeah. It doesn't really work. I'm trying to think of, like, again, not to write the show, but if you had an episode similar to it with Omega there, maybe that's something interesting or whatever. But seeing her conflicted now, again, we know that already. We just saw her dealing with the other kids, and
it would have been nice to like have I don't know, some way for her and Omega to talk to each other after Omega finds out about the kids. So it's like you can get.
Well, I think that'll happen next week.
Yeah, it just would have been nice to maybe have it in this one, so you could get those two characters.
No, we knew this episode needed to be 2 minutes shorter.
Yeah, I would have liked to see like Emery talking to another person who's like has empathy.
Yeah, like why do we need to end on this cliffhanger? Like, welcome to your new home. Bum bum bum. It's like, well, we know that already. Again, so
it's like we know you're gonna
give us a moment for her to acclimate and her to comment on the scenario, because now what's gonna happen is we're gonna go to next week, and she's already gonna be used to it.
Yeah,
and that's gonna be stupid. So anyway, not to complain. We like this show, actually.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. So she is escorted by Hemlock through the facility again, and explains. Hemlock explains the whole M-count replication situation. M-count replication situation, by the way, great band name. Or at least replication situation.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Anyway, quote, "Did you know an individual's M-count cannot be directly replicated?" Question mark. Yes, we did, actually, because this was explained to us multiple times this season already. Okay. "Attempts have been made, but each time the levels are degraded." Again, we knew this information. This was like the crux of their problems at the very beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Right? So we experimented, and we tried various methods, mixing samples from other test subjects, but nothing worked until we combined your sample with one of our M-count specimens. You are a vital piece to our work here, Omega. So no new information is delivered here. We knew she was a vital piece. We knew that they'd done experiments. We knew that her old brother was the only one that helped. We knew that MCount can't be directly cloned. All this stuff is known.
Yeah.
So there's no new revelation. That's frustrating. Though the plot does slightly move forward, I think having Omega learn one new thing that we didn't already know would have been helpful. Or, like, for instance, like combining your high MCount blood
right. Yeah.
with another.
Yeah.
Even that one additional word would have
been
made
nice.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I know. It's, yeah.
Or your surprisingly low MCount blood.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Which doesn't matter because even Sabine can use the Force. So
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, as they enter the vault, and by the way, I do like her unease. Omega's unease about going through the vault and all the laser doors and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. They set up the laser door. It's kind of like Chekhov's laser door because at some point they're going to have to break in. The Bad Batch is going to have to take on all of these troopers, all of these commandos, break into this facility, get through the laser doors somehow. And, it'd be interesting to see if they have, advanced knowledge of these laser doors or if it's a surprise when they get there. How are they going to deal with that?
Well, maybe what's his name will help them.
Emery?
No, not Emery. The Rampart.
Oh.
That's what they need Rampart for, the laser
Yeah, but
doors.
has Rampart even been there? Yeah, he's not.
No, but he would know how laser doors work.
Yeah, but I feel like you need the key.
That's true.
So
yeah.
I guess what I'm saying here is that it'll be interesting to see how they deal with it. They have the laser doors aren't there just for visual appeal. They're there to be part of the story at some point.
Got to make things difficult.
Yeah, so it'll be fun to see. So as they enter the vault, Omega is shocked to see kids. She also asks who they are, which is an interesting question. And the only answer we get is they are the rest of the puzzle, and this is your new home. The door slams shut behind them, ominously, of course, and then we cut to black. So, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think we kind of just went through it. Like we said, we would have liked a little bit, some new information would have been nice, kind of at the end here, or like a new conversation between Emery and Omega, or just like something that kind of moves things forward a little more. But I guess we'll see next week. Maybe there's a reason why we don't get as much this episode. So maybe next week we have a big chunky episode and we didn't have enough time to kind of fit this one in.
I would like to believe that at least one of the next 3 episodes is 45 minutes or longer.
Yeah, I would think that at least one of them is probably in that.
I'm already backtracking because I said one was
going to be
over an hour.
Yeah, I was like, ooh,
and now I'm thinking 45 minutes.
I was like, yeah, that 40, 45.
Or longer would be nice. I mean, we've had multiple episode premieres, right?
Yeah.
That have been, upwards of an hour and a half in total. We've had the series premiere, which was 90 minutes. So, it's not out of the question. And obviously for a series finale, it'd be nice to get an extended runtime.
I agree.
Ultimately, it would be nice to. I think they're gonna wait. They're gonna hold on revealing what the next animated series is until this is wrapped up.
Yeah, yeah.
And they might even reveal, kind of like hint exactly at what it's gonna be, and by hint I mean like they're gonna lay it out pretty straightforward as like this story wraps up, but it's going to continue in some way with these characters, and we may not know the title of that show or how that's gonna work yet exactly, but. I expect we're going to get some clarity on that. I would also be fine with not getting any of that clarity and just spending all the time wrapping up a satisfying ending for this series.
Yes.
And not worrying about what the next series is. Right? But we know that they're working on something. It's not just, they haven't just been working on 6 Empire shorts and that's it. There's something else in the pipeline that they're holding. And the reason they haven't told us yet, I'm guessing, is that it probably has something to do with spoilers for the end of this series.
I would assume so, yeah. Yeah, so I guess we'll see who's alive at the end of these next 3 episodes.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to do a death pool.
A death pool, yeah.
Right, sorry, a dead pool.
A dead pool, yeah. I was like, dead pool.
I think death pool technically makes more sense, but
yeah.
Anyway, dead pool is fun because we know what that actually... there's another meaning for that one.
Yeah, yeah.
A fun Ryan Reynolds character. Yeah, okay, remind me next week we'll do a Deadpool because as long as no one dies next week, but even then, we'll do a Deadpool for all the surviving characters. I'm going to tell you right now, Hemlock's for sure dead.
Yeah.
Emery, I am 75% sure she's dead.
Lana say.
Llama. Yeah, she's probably dead.
I was like, yeah, she's probably.
There's no way she makes it out.
I was gonna say.
Where would she even go?
That's what I mean. I feel like there's nowhere for her to go, and I feel like that's why things probably stall so hard for the Empire for a while.
Right.
Like,
So Nala Se is probably dead, and all her knowledge goes with it.
Yeah.
Omega is.
Yeah, she's probably alive.
She just survives because we don't kill kids.
Yeah, it's like she's.
But
we'll see.
The Empire's gonna presume she is dead. I think that's.
Okay.
I think that they're gonna fake her death, or everyone involved is gonna assume to be dead, and that'll be the end. So they can kind of like remember they said you can't be free until you know why they're after Omega. Right. So if the project's destroyed, obviously you know that Project Necromancer continues in some other capacity. Yes. But if Tantus is destroyed, which it may or may not, because it does technically play a role in some of the Thrawn novels.
Oh, okay.
Which is where it originally comes from.
Right.
And we know Thrawn is going to appear in those animated shorts.
Yes, yeah.
And of course, we know that there's more to the Heir of the Empire movie and the Mando movie and stuff like that. So it's possible that it's like resurrected, but I imagine it's either very badly damaged or destroyed. Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair. Crosshair likely dead.
Yeah, I would say.
Hunter possibly alive. I would say, but super guilty.
Yeah. Super guilty.
And
Wrecker?
Oh man,
Wrecker's
I think
a hard one. He's like a 50-50 for
I think
me.
that's fair. We'll have to put the odds on those.
Yeah.
Rampart probably dead.
Yeah.
Clone Trooper. Okay, I guess the other thing is we don't know
Clone
who the Clone X. The Clone X Trooper is.
Tech, is he dead?
It's not Tech. It can't be Tech.
Still dead.
There's 3 episodes left. You can't just reintroduce Tech now. There's no way. If they do that, that's crazy.
There's gonna be no Bad Batch dies. Tech is
alive. Everyone's alive at the end, and everyone's happy, and there's a rainbow.
Everyone's alive, including Tech.
And there's a hippo for some reason. And everyone's just happy.
They all get puppies.
They all get puppies. They live happily ever after on. They move Pabu to a secret location somehow, and that's how. Unlikely. Anyway, so we're ramping into the finale here, folks. Get ready. Hold on to your butts, as they say.
Hold on to your butts.
Yeah, that's a classic Jurassic Park line.
Yeah.
And we know the show likes to reference Jurassic Park. All right. So on that note, we'll be back next week with a lot more small screen Star Wars. Next week's episode is called... we just talked about this at the beginning of the episode. Into the Breach.
Yeah, there we go.
Which is a great... that phrase has a lot of history. We'll talk about that next week.
Okay.
I believe it's from a poem. And so we'll get into that next week. And if I don't, remind me.
Okay.
Again, I assume that this is the beginning of the assault on Tantus.
Yeah.
But we could be wrong. We have been wrong in the past, including as immediately as last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, guys. We'll be back next week with Into the Breach. Until then, may the Force be with you.